Hey, welcome to this episode of Breaking Digital Podcast. This is Doyle Bueller. Today I'm with the one and only Katrina McCarter from Melbourne, Australia. And Katrina runs a marketing strategy firm that deals specifically with moms. And if you're not aware of the size and power of that market, then you really sort of haven't been keeping up. But it's an amazing study of how she gets insights into the moms. And we're not just talking young moms, we're talking all kinds of moms as well. And Katrina goes into a lot of detail in terms of how to isolate that niche and how it's really important. And one of the interesting insights is that she came with was that about 2/3 of advertisers don't actually get moms, which is actually quite surprising when you think about it, because they are one of the most powerful groups in retail, in marketing, in all that kind of stuff, in consumer power as well. So if you're missing out on that, then you've really kind of missing out on a huge potential opportunity. So Katrina and I go through some wonderful detail of getting digital as well, what works for live sessions with moms, as well as, are there sort of any missing pieces, missing gaps with the persona of moms and how you might be able to actually leverage that market. And she comes up with one amazing one, the invisible persona, which I just absolutely love. Which says that, hey, guess what? There are some opportunities out there that a lot of marketers and a lot of brands and businesses are missing. So coming up quick, Katrina McCarter, marketing to moms.
Overwhelmed with online or just wanting to learn more about how you can build a successful business amidst all of the self-appointed gurus, big buzzwords and empty promises? The Breaking Digital Podcast by Doyle Bueller tells you exactly what smart entrepreneurs need to know to escape the clutter, get clear of the confusion, and pass the bullshit of building and growing a successful business online. It's about digital leadership and delivering the best value for your business online to your audience. Now, here's your host and author of the book on digital leadership and online marketing, The Digital Delusion, Doyle Bueller.
All right, welcome back. Today I'm with the amazing Katrina McCarter, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. You have an Australian accent, right, Katrina?
Do I ever? It's very broad.
Yeah, better than my fake one. But anyway, Katrina is a marketing strategist for moms and is actually author of Marketing to Moms, How to Sell More to Australia's Most Powerful Consumer. And we're going to get into a lot of detail about the market and the trends and opportunities for that coming right up. So welcome, Katrina.
Oh, thank you very much, Doyle. A big treat today to have the opportunity to speak to you and your community.
Yeah, no, I love it. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. So just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Katrina McCarter?
Sure. Look, I am someone who is really passionate about mums. I believe that mums are the most undervalued, misunderstood, and misrepresented consumer group in the world. And something that really that drives me is I'm really wanting to change the way we speak to mums around the world.
And why is that? Why do you think, or is there like a changing sort of perception of mums in the marketplace?
I just think that there's a massive commercial opportunity out there for businesses. So, mums here, here in Australia, mums represent $132 billion in spending in this country every year. So we have a thing that if mums were an industry, that would be our largest contributor to GDP in this country. And I know, looking at it from a US perspective, Maria Bailey, who's the US guru in terms of marketing to moms, talks about it as $1 trillion industry. So there's just this massive opportunity for businesses who really get this right and can connect with mums. They can really get some terrific sales growth.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that's $132 billion
every single year.
Every single year. Wow. And so what is that relative to, like, what percentage would that be of total sort of spent in Australia and other countries, if you have that?
Well, look, I think if you put it in context, as I said before, Doyle, that if mums were an industry, they would be the largest contributor to our gross domestic product. So they're hugely influential. They control over 80% of all purchases around the world, and we're not just talking about the groceries. Mums are out there buying, advertising, legal and accounting services, because we're seeing this huge growth in the number of mums that are entering business. In Australia, over the last decade, we've seen women go into business at 2 to 3 times the rate of men. And that's because they're really searching, I guess, for more flexible work conditions and I guess a more meaningful work as well. So the traditional look of what actually mum buys and controls and influences has become much greater and much broader.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. And so this whole sort of market swell, that I love how you've sort of carved out that niche. Where do you think it's going to go from here?
Well, look, it's actually, surprisingly, it's actually a small industry at the moment in terms of businesses that are in the space of helping other businesses sell more to mums. I was in New York last year and I went to their M to Moms conference, and that's really the leading executive event for people involved in the marketing to moms industry. And we heard from, the likes of Google and Twitter, but there would have been probably a couple of hundred attendees there, mainly research organisations. But this industry is still in its infancy, I really believe. Certainly in Australia, I'm the only marketing and research consultancy that just looks at mums, which I find really quite amazing, given the influence and how much money mums control in this country. That there are not hundreds of businesses that are out there helping other businesses target mums.
Yeah, so you're really sort of spearheading that market.
Absolutely.
What kind of so tell me what kind of insights can you share with us about this massive market segment? And look, obviously not everybody's going to be marketing directly to mums, but potentially there's obviously that influence there. What insights? Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've just done a study of 1,800 mums. We did an online survey and we had a look at their social media habits, but also which was how they want to be communicated with, because surprise, surprise, no one's actually ever asked them. And in this survey, I was hoping to get probably 300 or 400 responses, and this was in preparation for writing my book. And I was overwhelmed with the number of respondents that we got. The survey actually went viral in itself online, with mums wanting to have their voice heard. So we received over 1,800 respondents.
Wow.
And what we were able to gauge from that was, I guess the key finding there for me was that 63%, so almost 2 out of every 3 Australian mums, believe advertisers and marketers don't understand them. And that really, for me, solidifies and confirms that real opportunity that I'm talking about that's there for businesses who can get this right. The financial gain is immense. And we also asked them, what do you think? What is it that businesses and brands are getting wrong? What is it that we need to identify and change? And overwhelmingly, mums came out and said the number one thing that drives us crazy is stereotyping. They find that they believe that brands treat them like they're still back in the 50s. And one of the key findings we found was that mums want to be treated as women first and mums second. And what they said to us is motherhood is really important to us, but it's not all of us. And they actually want to be reflected for the whole person that they are, with other interests. And I found that really, really interesting, because often what we see is women have been running a professional career, have a child, and society actually changes the way they speak to them, and they talk to them just as a mother. And I think that she is really, it's something that she has to accommodate and change, and she's wanting to be reflective for those other interests, and she's really missing that. So she's been really forthright in saying, please change this. And one of the key things that she's asking for is diversity. She wants to see diversity in the family structure. So, we see there's a lot of single mums out there, and they have an incredible influence over the buying decisions within the household, obviously. But there's also same-sex couples, and they want to see that depicted in advertising. I know when I was in the States at the conference, Tylenol in the US have got a great campaign around We Are Family. This is how we family. And they show a great deal of diversity in all of their marketing communications. The Gap is another company that also shows a lot of diversity. But we haven't seen a great deal of diversity shown in the Australian media landscape. And I think that that's one key thing that they've asked to change.
So in terms of the 60%, that feel, or 2/3 rather, that you felt advertisers weren't getting moms, you're kind of then helping them to sort of create that balance then to get them over that line type thing?
Yeah, well, I guess, Doyle, what we're trying to do is to be able to show brands, okay, these are the key issues. So, stereotyping was one of 9 things that came out. And then we looked at, well, what are the things that brands could do differently, and what are the real opportunities that are out there based on all this information that we gathered in from mums. And I would say I really see that there are probably 3 or 4 really key opportunities out there right now in the digital landscape that aren't being harnessed by brands. And I think that there are some real benefits out there for the businesses that can do those. If you've got a few minutes, Doyle, I'm happy to.
Let's go into digital.
Okay, look, Facebook Live. Facebook to me is it's in such an infancy right now, and brands are still really just working out how it is that they can use Facebook Live to connect with mums. I see this as a massive opportunity to be the first out there claiming it in your space. I heard I've just been up in Sydney this week at the Mumbrella Travel Marketing Summit. I was speaking up there, and one of the keynote addresses was from Luxury Escapes, which is an online, I guess, highly curated travel holiday website, and they've just started using Facebook Live. And what amazed me, the speaker Blake asked people to put their hands up in the room who was actually using Facebook Live, and out of about 400 people in the room, I was the only one with a hand up. So blew my mind. Like, it's a huge opportunity out there for someone to harness and actually use it. So, for instance, I always use it with my community because I have a large number of women in business in my community, mums in business, who also target other mums. So I use it when I'm traveling. I will share a lot of tips and learnings that I'm getting from conferences, or things that I'm learning from when I'm out on the road coaching other mums in business. But a brand might use it in terms of they could use it at events for sharing third-party endorsement, and almost using it like an interview style, where they could be asking mums what they think of a particular product or service, and gather insights that way. That also can be used as a third-party kind of endorsement, which is absolutely critical in converting mum over to a sale.
So how should they, you're sort of giving them a few ideas, but the problem with sort of Facebook Live and those live platforms, and I think that goes for pretty much any niche, is that people don't have the content to be able to kind of support that. So I believe that, people start it, but they're kind of scared, so they don't know what to say. Maybe this episode is fine, but what about the next one? And what about the next one? How would you kind of organize the ideas, the content side, to say connect directly with moms in this case by using a live platform?
Yeah, look, Doyle, you are absolutely spot on it there. I have seen a lot of that where people have delved into it and then they don't know what to do next. I think that Facebook Live needs a real strategy around it. and it needs to have a defined use. So I wouldn't use it for a number of different things. I would use it for one thing and one thing only. So for me, it's sharing new knowledge that I've learned at conferences with my community. But for another brand, it might be, as I said, it might be about sharing third-party endorsement. So they might use it at their live events.
So how do you decide what to use for when then? Like what not to use? Because that's important too. Like what should I not use?
Yeah, okay. I think it would depend very much on whether it's a product or service, and what kind of product or service it was. But let's take, for instance, an online toy store that targeted mums. They could use Facebook Live. Where could they use it? They have strategy for them to use that. That might be at. I would probably, they could use that
like
as a
product demos or something like that. Like here's this new toy.
Yeah. I do have a client in this area, and she uses it for, she doesn't use it for Facebook. She uses a time-lapse motion, but she's using video, and she uses it to demonstrate a product in use by other children.
Yeah.
So it shows what kind of age then that product is suitable for, and how it could be used, and also how it could be used with a parent as well. Because actually one of the things that we've seen with millennial mums is that they want to have a shared experience. So if her market was millennial mums, her Facebook Live should actually be demonstrating how much she loves using this particular toy to interact and play with her child. That would actually be really, really useful. Whereas if you were targeting mums over the age of 35, they would be far more interested in just seeing the child in isolation using that toy and talking about the benefits they see in the child using the toy.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So just on that note with sort of millennial mums and then a little bit older mums and that sort of thing, do you think that maybe are millennial mums kind of driving the digital space and driving more of the digital marketing because of where they're situated? Or is it the older mums that are saying, hey, I want to...
Such a good question. I love this question. So look, in our study, we've found the older mums are actually living on Facebook, and they're probably using it just as much as the millennial mums. There really doesn't seem to be a key distinction there. We probably see the millennial mums being more interested in having a greater skew towards Instagram. But in terms of social media platforms, the number one platform, like right across all age groups and absolutely leading the pack, is Facebook. Really, really strongly.
Yeah. Okay. So then that ties back into Facebook and that sort of thing. So I had a question earlier about the content side of things. What would you suggest other examples of good content to sort of help a business move forward with digital, with social, with, that sort of thing?
Well, if they were a service business, I would use it to talk about key tips. So Facebook Live could really be used very well in terms of sharing key tips that they could be sharing for their potential clients, and that could be seen as sharing valued content with their community. So that would be the number one key thing that I would recommend for a service-based business.
Yeah. Okay. And I imagine that within sort of the way that you sort of help clients as well, do you kind of help them come up with topics too, like?
Oh, absolutely. Time? Yeah. Look, when I'm actually working with a client, we'll have a look at the whole social media strategy. We'll have a look at what time what kind of post should be used at what times of the day as well, because we also see differences in terms of the types of content at different times of the day. And I would also assist them in terms of planning how much of it should be sales-based content and how much should be value-added content and how much should be engagement content. One of the things that I really see that's underpowered in social media is what I call soft data, and social media is a place that is so rich in soft data to learn more about your customer base. So I highly recommend to all my clients spending half hour a week just reading through all the comments that have come through on your Facebook page, on your Instagram feed, because that can often give you really great insights about your ideal customer, and more so it can uncover other problems that they might be facing that you might be able to develop products or services to meet. So it's very data rich and often underutilized.
Right. Yeah. And so how would you start to grow that platform? How would you start to utilize it a little bit better?
Oh, look, I use it in terms of developing relationships and learning more about my ideal client, about my most profitable client. So as I said, I'm reading through all the information that's coming through, and I'm talking about their comments on posts and how they might react to certain things. Gives you insights about who they are and what are some of the things that might happen in their day, or some of the problems that they're facing. Because the deeper that we understand that, the better that we can tailor our services and products for them, and we can get better relationships and grow a stronger loyal base.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's what a lot of businesses miss, is that they're not sort of tuning into that feedback loop
Absolutely.
of what people are saying. Yeah.
It needs to, from my point of view, it really needs to be part of your weekly activities, just as you might, do your accounts or something for the week. It's really, here's your time for digital. Let's have a look at some of your feedback from clients, and let's read their interactions so that we can see if we can pick something more up about them.
Yeah, and that would give some great insights on the customer. But I guess we kind of still have to be, as a marketing strategist yourself, like you kind of have to be careful that you're not sort of swayed to and fro, because if you took sort of the insights too literally, you kind of might be doing too many things.
Yeah, I still think it gives you a greater picture. I will say where I find even richer data online is in Facebook groups. Particularly for mums. So mums are more likely to be in a Facebook group they enter into Facebook groups just for mums, and they feel a level of protection because they're closed groups, and that's where they're really starting to share recommendations, and they're talking about good and bad experiences working with brands. And that can be a real challenge for businesses, obviously, because these are closed groups, and how do you get your eyes and ears out into the Facebook groups? And how can you potentially get your brand into a Facebook group? And I've had a lot of success just through my relationships that I have with a lot of Facebook group owners in actually being able to get clients advertised within a Facebook group in a more authentic and native way that can have huge sales results for businesses. So that's certainly an area that is open for opportunity right now, I see right across the world.
Okay. And so how does a company interact with Facebook groups then specifically? Should they start their own? Should they find a large group and start to, I don't know, infiltrate it? That's probably not the proper word.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. Look, starting a group can be a great way, but I think that you're going to have even greater impact by entering into another group. And how I would do that is I would identify. I would do some research to identify which Facebook groups had your ideal mum in it, and I would contact the administrator. Typically, there's very few brands out there right now that are working with Facebook groups because they just don't know what to do. So the first step, contact the administrator, let them know a little bit about what you do, and see if there are any working arrangements that they are open to. One of the things that I do on behalf of clients is I will often send administrators if it's a product, I will just send them a gift. Just like an influencer, with an influencer, I normally send that along with a handwritten note just to say, here's a gift, enjoy. I have no expectation of what they might do. With that, there's no expectation that they'll post, and I certainly don't ask for that. Generally, you'll have some that will come back and say, I absolutely love this product. This is great. Do you want to work? Are you open to working together? Or you will have some that will post, and that those ones that actually provide feedback to you, positive feedback, that they're potentially businesses that are A, partner friendly, and B, really like your product. So that can always be a great opening to developing a relationship with an administrator who controls that Facebook group. And from there, I would talk to them about what ideas they have that your brand can be spoken about within the group in an authentic way. And that generally happens from the administrator, because they carry great influence over the group, obviously. So ways that you might do that is you might set up a 12-month, almost like a sponsorship of the Facebook group, and you leave it, and I would speak to the administrator about what ideas they have in terms of content generation and integration of your product and service, rather than you dictating what that copy should be, because the administrator is going to have a certain language and way that they operate that will come across far more authentically to their community than coming from a brand.
Do you recommend just that one approach where you sort of partner with an existing Facebook group, or are there examples where a company, a brand would say, hey, we'd like to start our own group. Can you help us build that? And if so, what kind of steps would you take?
Look, I have seen that the approach that I've taken to be far more successful, and I think it's because the group is already in existence. It's got a cross section of the mums in there are freely talking about brands anyway, so that there's a little bit known about that group rather than setting one up. If you were to set up a group, I have seen some really terrific mums in business groups that have been set up, and I think women are online all the time, and certainly our research is saying that. It doesn't matter what time of the day, mums like to be checking into their social media accounts. And so they are networking online and letting people know that they've set up a group. So I think that it would require some paid adverts on behalf of anyone setting up a Facebook group to grow the group quickly.
Okay, but so it is a viable method then?
It's a viable method. It certainly wouldn't be my first choice.
But it's not, okay.
The rate of return on the first option that I said would be far greater than setting up your own group.
Yeah. Well, what kind of business would typically then feel that they have the strength to start their own group? Would it be one that's, say, a predominantly women-based product or service, or something like that? Or a larger brand, or
It could work across both, I think, Doyle. Like, for instance, if you had a group of mums and it was about something that was like, you might have a feminine hygiene product, you might then have a group where women can talk about all sorts of women's issues within that group.
Yeah.
In a safe area, and that would be a nice match. That could work well. Similarly, you might have a financial service organisation that predominantly targets mums, and you might set up a closed Facebook group where mums felt comfortable asking questions about finances, because we do see in terms of the research that a lot of women and a lot of mums are a bit hesitant in speaking up and asking questions around finance. So that might be a really great environment where she feels a degree of safety amongst other women asking those questions. So it could work really well for that kind of business.
Right. Okay. No, that's interesting. And so once they've set it up, what should they start to do? Like what's really important to kind of grow that community?
Well, obviously posting regularly and facilitating conversations between other people within the group. So I think you have to be really clear about what the purpose of the group is. and communicating that purpose and that vision for the group, I think is incredibly important. And then it's about starting to put in some valuable content in there to start people talking and interacting and joining the community. I will say probably about 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, here in Australia, two female entrepreneurs set up a Facebook closed group for other women in business. And that just absolutely spread with word of mouth through Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And that has grown to a community, I think, of over about 35,000 female entrepreneurs in Australia.
Yeah.
And that now is a go-to place for anyone who's got a question that doesn't feel comfortable. You go and ask the girls. Go and ask the ladies who are out there doing it if you've got a question about anything to do with your business. And there have been great partnerships and collaborations that have formed through that group.
Oh, that's good. A fascinating study in terms of what you can do and how you can sort of build that audience. What sort of some of the things, like you've obviously have a lot of insights to the market, to the mom market. What do you think is, what pieces do you feel you're still kind of missing? It's like, oh, I just want to find out this one more thing to kind of help paint that picture a little bit better. Obviously, if you knew it, you'd be able to find it. But is there, any gaps in sort of the data that you're seeing and that you can't just quite nail down?
Yeah,
or would like to know.
Oh, look, there is a segment of the market that I find really, really fascinating, and I call her the invisible woman. And it's
I remember her.
Yeah, look, it's a growing part of the market. And so these are women who have still got dependent children. They're certainly back in the peak of their career, so they're really, really into it. But they're dealing with their aging parents. So their level of stresses are very high. So they've got it above them and below them of what they're coordinating. They're also at their financially economic most powerful. So they're wealthy, but they're incredibly time poor and they're under a great deal of stress. They've got the money to spend on things, but what they say is, we are completely forgotten about and there's nothing for us to buy. So I speak to these women. They're not buying clothes because they feel that there's nothing in apparel that really caters for them. They're saying that there's a lack of technical services that they would like to assist them coordinate, their parents, medical stuff alongside, looking after their kids and running a business or working full time. So they're looking for a lot more in-home support and outsourcing, which they just say they are finding really difficult to find. So she is this woman that I call the invisible woman and represents a huge opportunity, I think, out there, probably the greatest opportunity out there for businesses right now.
Wow, that's cool. So you're going to kind of are you going to start to fill in that persona a little bit more, or can you? Or
yeah, look, well, I've certainly written about her, and when I was on the panel, so I was on a panel this week at Mumbrella, and I was on with a woman who was talking about the baby boomers, and she was saying, they're constantly depicted as these grey-headed sets, in their 70s, and she said we're so vital, and we consider ourselves very youthful, and we've got the money, but you need to show us what we can spend it on. And again, she's feeling very misrepresented as well. And I think that we're talking about that bridge of, late mid 50s upwards, who still has the dependent children, because we're seeing women having their first children at a much later age now as well. So I think that this market is really, really going to grow around this invisible woman. And I just think that there are some real opportunities from a technical aspect as well, in technical services that businesses could really, really do well out of catering for her and really targeting her and understanding her. She's really feeling misunderstood.
Wow, that's fascinating. It sounds like a tremendous opportunity. For businesses. So just we're going to have to unfortunately wrap up soon, but how would you actually, what would be your recommendation to say if a business or brand is looking at sort of focusing in on the mums to market? What preliminary steps should they take to get that ball rolling? Obviously, besides calling you, but
yeah, I'd love them to call me. But no, look, straight up understand her. One of the key things we see is one of the key mistakes that get made is mums get treated like they're all one big homogenous group. And look, mums are all very, very different. So definitely take the time to research. When I work with a client, I spend the first 4 to 8 weeks literally doing nothing more than drilling down into research or doing my own primary research to work out who is this ideal, most profitable mum for this business. And that might involve talking to their existing clients, running surveys, again, looking at Facebook insights to get a better understanding of who she is. Once you have a really solid understanding of this, the strategy to cater for her is really pretty simple. But that is without doubt the number one thing that I would do.
Okay, that's fascinating. And then kind of build a program supporting that market and kind of building it from there.
Yeah, I think once you understand her, it's much easier. As I said, there are key differences between the millennial mum and the mum who's over 35. So if you can understand which market you're in, it's going to change what strategies that you might use in your business.
So be specific what micro niche of mums you would like to work with, and then decide on how you're going to unroll that strategy.
Absolutely, Doyle. I come from the belief that you cannot niche enough.
Yeah.
Like, really don't be frightened of niching. Niche.
So even if you say moms, you still have to niche into smaller.
Without question. Yeah. If you just, and this is probably the biggest problem that I see when I first go and visit a client, I say, tell me who are you targeting? And they'll say mums. Say, that's awesome. Tell me a little bit more about her. And they go, well, look, we cater for all mums. Like, we don't want to isolate just for one segment. We cater. And I say, but we're all so different. You're just not going to connect with any of us if you're going to have such a broad approach. You need to be very specific and laser focused about who it is that you're targeting.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, that surprises me too. And it must be something about business that we feel that, everybody wants to buy from us, but it doesn't matter how much you niche, you still have to niche an extra level because it's not specific enough.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. You just don't connect. And what mum is seeking is she wants deep connections. So a mum wants to know what you value, what your business stands for, how you're going to deal with any customer complaint before she's ever going to transact with you. So her level of research into who you are prior to transaction is much, much greater than a man. Much, much greater.
Wow. Yeah, no, cool. And that's fascinating. And we'll probably leave it at that because that's a really critical point to understand. So, fascinating discussion, Katrina. How can people reach out to you? How can they find you online?
Oh, look, I would love to connect. My website is www.marketingtomums, which is mums.com.au. Alternatively, please feel free to drop me an email, which is Katrina with a K @marketingtomums.com.au.
And again, MUMS, not MOMS.
That's right.
I never understood the difference, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Katrina. It's been a lovely discussion, some fascinating insights into the market of mums. So I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you, Doyle. As I said, a real pleasure. Thanks for listening.
Excellent. And for all the listeners, you'll be able to get the show notes and additional goodies and freebies on breaking.digital. So with that, I'll sign off and we will see you online. Thank you very much for listening to Breaking Digital, the podcast for smart entrepreneurs wanting to become true digital leaders in their industry and to own online. If you have any comments on the program, please feel free to connect on Twitter @DoyleBuehler with the hashtag #OwnOnline. I would really appreciate it if you could share this podcast with your network, as I'm sure they will get some value from it for building their successful business online as well. You can find the resources that we talked about, as well as the transcript and full podcast for download on thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast or on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'm Doyle Buehler, and I will see you online.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Digital with Doyle Bueller. While he goes and makes a sandwich, you can find all of the notes, links and details on this podcast by visiting thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. Go on and click that now. www.thedigitaldelusion.com/podcast. I'll definitely click that. If you'd like a free copy of the book, The Digital Delusion, How to Overcome the Misguidance and Misinformation Online, just send an email to doyle@thedigitaldelusion.com. See you online.